Yo, what's going on, my homies? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk a little bit of UFC 283. We're going to do the top 3 fights on the card. This fight's going to be an absolute banger. So if you enjoy this sort of content, please like and subscribe down below. Without further ado, let's get straight into the video. So with the main event, I thought we'll start off talking about Glover, because mainly Glover has been the more experienced fighter. He's been around for a lot longer and has always performed so well under really high stress situations. And I think a lot of that comes down to him always being very basic, but also very good at his basics. So what I mean by that is MMA is, in a lot of aspects, as we all know, is so many different things going on at once. So we got striking, clinching, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, there's so many different arts all coming into one. You got like taekwondo, you got boxing, you got Muay Thai, you got karate in some aspects, you got wrestling, you got freestyle, Greco-Roman wrestling, judo, jiu-jitsu. There's so many things going on, but Glover has refined his game to a couple of different aspects and really nailed down the best parts of those games and implemented them so well that it just always works no matter what age or what's going on with him. The only thing that worries me about Glover a little bit is he is a bit older. He's been through so many more fights. He's a bit more war-torn, so we'll have to see how he goes in this one. But is definitely someone you don't take lightly. So here's a couple of numbers for Glover Teixeira. So at age 43, he's standing around 188 centimeters tall, about the same height as me. Reach 193 centimeters. He's an orthodox fighter. Pros for me in this fight is, number one, he is a BJJ black belt, and that is comparing to Hill, who is a blue belt, is definitely a massive jump. I'm only a basic blue belt, I do it because I love it, and I'm not to the level of someone like a Hill as a blue belt, but I do understand the difference between a blue belt and rolling with a black belt in just jiu-jitsu and just grappling. Striking and all that can change little aspects, but still, if you have got that limited sort of time on the mats or time grappling, it is such a big difference there. So that is definitely a massive tick for Glover Teixeira in this one. He has a higher takedown output, and for me, the key for him to win in this fight is he's more the front foot fighter. So he will kind of always be pushing the pressure. He uses a lot of good combinations, a sneaky left hook to get inside, and he'll go more into like a single leg to a clinch situation up against the fence, make it real grimy. If he's going to get you to the ground, he'll dominate you there. If he's not going to get you there, he's going to make you work to get out of that clinch. So that is my pros for Glover Teixeira. Moving on to Hill. Hill is a young, athletic phenom that has taken UFC by storm, only losing one fight for Paul Craig by armbar from bottom. That setup came from, I think, more of a triangle setup from Craig, if I do remember correctly. I don't see Teixeira really throwing that up from bottom. Teixeira, every time I usually watch Teixeira, he loves to be on top. He's more of a top game jiu-jitsu boy. As I was saying before, he's revolutionized his game around MMA, a lot like a Damian Maia and all that sort of stuff, that would rather be in top position, cause damage, but that will end up getting to the submission instead of being on bottom, getting damage put on you, and you losing the fight that way. And it's a lot harder to throw up submissions and stuff like that when your head's getting beaten into the canvas. And there's a lot of aspects in jiu-jitsu where that does happen, but then you could also get caught, which is the way Hill got caught against someone like Paul Craig, who does love to be on the bottom. So he won't see that too much from Teixeira in this fight. He won't really fight from the bottom too much, but Hill has had a taste of a high-level jiu-jitsu boy in MMA, and I think that's going to be better for him in this fight, basically. Hill is more of a sniper sort of fighter, very long range. He loves to keep his distance, use his footwork, and he's more of like a half-beat fighter. So what I mean by that is he loves to fight usually beat per beat is just one-to-one, one-to-one. So you strike, they strike back. He loves to try and find those interconnections to get those openings, like with the Johnny Walker knockout, which is one of his more impressive ones. He threw that straight left that hit pretty much on the forehead with enough power just to take Johnny Walker on the ground. While he was doing that, was in the middle of Johnny Walker standing back and then getting ready to throw one of his fights. So within that half beat, he ended up taking him out. So I do see Jamal taking that sort of aspect in this fight. He will be probably put in the back foot, even though he fights very evenly with a front foot, back foot fighter. He can fight from the back foot. He can fight from the front. He loves to find those opportunities and find that chin. And there's going to be opportunities there because Glover does get touched. So the numbers for Hill is he's 31 years old, 193 centimeters tall, which is the taller fighter in this fight, 201 centimeters tall, which is the longer fighter in this fight. He is a southpaw, so that does obviously come with a little bit of an advantage. More so, there's less southpaws in the world comparative to orthodox fighters, which is very, very common. So he will have like more so an experience advantage, but someone like Glover who's been training for years, that won't be too much an advantage, but it is. Like, it is and it isn't, you know what I mean? He does come out with a higher significant strike rate, and he's more accurate over striking, and he has more power. The only problem is he doesn't have the better takedown defense, so obviously that could be an issue. But to be honest, if you got all that power and that, maybe he can connect just before it needs to be and put Teixeira on his back, but we'll have to see how we go. For me, my tip, I'm going Glover because Glover is a lot more of the grimy fighter, and especially when you think about MMA in general, if we're going to put our money on it or anything like that, I know like betting's a bit different where you got to find the best value and all that sort of stuff, but it's more likely this fight will end up going to decision if it becomes Glover's fight. So, and I do believe Glover will pressure him into that sort of fight, and he will end up trying to go to distance. I expect Glover to walk him forward, put him up against the fence, couple of single leg, trying to like get him to the ground. I do expect him to get on the ground a couple of times in this fight, which could wear Hill down a little bit, and that's where I think he's going to get the decision victory. There is obviously the biggest, like the elephant in the room is his age, and he's a bit war torn at the moment. So it's more like it can happen that Hill can touch him and knock him out and all that sort of stuff, but people don't really understand how hard it is actually to KO a person and how many things have to line up. And so the more likely thing to happen for me in my eyes, and the person I'm tipping for this fight, Glover, is to go all the way for the decision and just grind out a victory, or even better, get tap out on submission or TKO on exhaustion and just punishment. So we'll have to see how that goes, but I'm going Glover by decision. And just quickly to run down the main card. So we got Figgy versus Moreno, and I'm not having too many stats on these because I want to make these short and simple. The main fight I want to touch on a little bit more, and then the other fights is just my basically view on the both fights and who I think is going to win. So with Figgy and Moreno, basically I'm leaning more so to Moreno, only because rematches usually always finish in decisions, more so than first fights, because in first fights they're only basing it on video and training in their training camps and all that sort of stuff, and the fighter can come out and get shocked and surprised, and certain little things can happen which causes more likely to get subbed or KO'd and that sort of stuff. When you got fighters that have been, as in Figgy Moreno, fighting 4 times now, they've been in the ring with each other so many times, they've been in camp just reviewing each other so many different times, that it's really hard for a fighter to continue to change his game completely to get the upper edge between the two. We all got to understand fighters are human beings, and what happens in the ring usually is a correlation of what happens in training sessions and what happens every single day. And when you're a fighter that's been training for years and years and years, you're going to get good at most aspects, and those aspects will come out in the fight. A wise man always said to me that when you get tired, when you get hit, you always go back to the main things that always seem to win you the fight. It's straights. It's like stuff that you've put into the bank so many hours that it becomes second nature, that when you're hurt, you're just going to pull it out, and that's the way you're going to do it. It's kind of like when you're a blue belt or like any sort of jiu-jitsu belt, if you're rolling blue to blue or black to black, you're not going to see too many of them going for any crazy high-risk maneuvers, because more so, if you're going to want to win that fight, you're going to pull out your best guns and the guns that you use all the time and you know is going to work. Where if you're to be a black belt versus a white belt, you're going to play around. You're going to use whole new moves. You're going to use all different type of stuff. It's all going to work for you, and you're not scared to get yourself in those bad positions because you're not worried for the aspect. When you get into the octagon, you're not going to do anything too crazy and new if it hasn't been something you've instilled in yourself over camps. And I believe every time that these guys come into camp and all that sort of stuff, they've fought 4 times now. They understand each other so much. I believe that Moreno's output is going to be a little bit too much, and he's going to understand Figgy is that type of fighter that can change a fight with that one punch, and he's going to try and stay away from that one punch, but also continue that output so he ends up winning on decisions. So that's my little tip on that one. The last fight I'm going to talk about is Burns versus Magny, and I'm really excited because both these fighters I enjoy for very different reasons. Burns is a legit world champion BJJ black belt, and I respect him so much. I love watching him fight. He's like that fighter I really enjoy watching every single time. He's also got that little touch of power that can change a fight, where Magny, he on the opposite end of the spectrum, is is a very technical fighter. He'll always do the things that ends up winning the fight. You won't see him wing punches too much. He's very like straight and narrow, jab, cross, hook, very straight and narrow. Always will do anything to pepper to get to the decision, or, you know, when he finds a little opportunity, he will take it, but is a very defensive wrestler plus a good striker to where he keeps on the feet, just plods along, keeps his distance, and it's going to make an interesting fight. I believe another one, it's going to be a bit boring, but I think all these fights may go to the decision the way I'm looking at it. Again, anything can happen in an octagon, but I think it's more likely to go to decision in this fight, mainly because Magny will try and keep the distance, and Burns is just going to try and cut him off and really come in with looping shots and that to get into the double leg and the single leg, put him up against the fence, clinch him out. And with 3-round fights, we've seen it with fighters like Burns versus Wonderboy, where Wonderboy is keeping a distance, everything on the outside and that. Burns is like, can touch him and can put him on the ground. We've all seen this, but I do believe that Burns is going to probably take this one in a decision. That is just my outlook. I believe that he could have the biggest advantage, obviously getting to the ground and getting a sub or something like that. But Magny is so defensively sound. I believe he's just going to drag it out, and it's going to be a decision victory for Burns. All right, guys. Hope you guys enjoy the new UFC content coming to my channel. I hope you guys enjoy it. It's definitely something I love. I've been watching UFC for such a long time now. I've always loved it. Something I've always wanted to talk about. So these talking videos really help me to get to that. And hope you guys, if you're new to the channel, please like and subscribe down below. I'm trying to keep these more short form content. I don't want them really long or anything like that, where I'm going to nail off numbers and all that sort of stuff. If you want to see all that sort of stuff, I do recommend Dan Hardy. I love his breakdowns. He's so amazing what he does. So shout out to Dan Hardy, Full Reptile. Go look it up on YouTube if you want like really in-depth breakdowns of each fight. But I hope you guys enjoy it. Lastly, have a good day. Peace out.